The black hole loomed in the distance, its immense gravity bending the very fabric of space. A massive space station, a shimmering testament to alien ingenuity, hovered in the empty void. It was the heart of the Galactic Council, a vast and powerful alliance of the most advanced civilizations in the universe. Species from countless star systems, with technologies far beyond anything humanity could imagine, gathered here today. Their purpose? To discuss the future of the galaxy, its laws, its wars, its peace. Among the delegates sat one representative from Earth, Ilara Moro, a young physicist with short black hair, a calm demeanor, and a mind sharper than any weapon. Humanity, until recently, had been seen as nothing more than a primitive species stuck on a young planet in the farthest reaches of the galaxy. But now, after centuries of strife and survival, humans had gained the attention of these powerful beings. Today was the day Earth would sit at the table of the galaxy's most influential powers. But Ilara knew this moment wouldn't be easy. Despite humanity's courage and ambition, the council members had already made their judgment. To them, humans were still beneath notice, small, unimportant, and unworthy of any real power. As Ilara stepped onto the stage before the council, she could feel their eyes on her, sizing her up. They didn't believe in human potential. They believed Earth was just a footnote in the grand story of the universe. Ilara adjusted the collar of her sleek, high-tech uniform, a small device humming at her wrist. Human technology, rapidly advancing to the point of impressing even these ancient species. The room was silent. The representatives of the various species, each so different in appearance, waited for the proceedings to begin. Ilara was the only human present, and she was fully aware of the weight on her shoulders. If she failed today, humanity would remain nothing more than a curiosity, unfit to join the ranks of these ancient civilizations. The council leader, a towering figure of translucent blue skin, with 4 glowing eyes and an aura of authority, stood up. His voice echoed across the chamber, a voice so rich and deep that it reverberated in Ilara's chest. "Humans," the leader intoned, "you have been granted this rare opportunity to present yourselves to the Galactic Council. But what do you offer? You have no advanced technology compared to us. Your history is filled with war and destruction. You are no more than children in the eyes of the galaxy." Ilara stood her ground, her hands steady by her sides. She could feel the weight of the thousands of eyes watching her, each one filled with skepticism, or worse, pity. "We may not have the centuries of peace you've enjoyed," Ilara began, her voice calm but firm. "But we've learned. We've learned to adapt. And we've learned to survive." The alien leader chuckled softly, a sound that echoed through the chamber. "Survive. You call it survival when your species has nearly destroyed your planet countless times. We see your history, human. Chaos. But no matter. We are willing to listen. Tell us then, what do you know?" Ilara took a breath. This was it. She wasn't just representing herself or her people. She was representing the entire history of humanity, its struggles, its resilience, and its untapped potential. The challenge before her was immense, and yet the eyes of the galaxy were now fixed on her. "I will show you what we know," Ilara said confidently. "I will show you a concept that has baffled your greatest minds for centuries, a theory considered impossible for millennia." The murmurs in the room grew louder. Whispers of disbelief swept across the chamber. How could a primitive species like humans possibly know something that had eluded the greatest minds in the galaxy? Ilara nodded to her side, and the holographic display flared to life. The room dimmed slightly, and a series of glowing equations and symbols filled the air. It was a mathematical equation, complex beyond what most of the aliens had ever seen. It hovered above her, casting a soft glow. The leader of the council narrowed his 4 eyes, his gaze piercing. "What is this?" he demanded. "What nonsense have you brought to us?" "This," Ilara said, her voice clear, "is the solution to chronospatial energy flux stabilization. For centuries, No species in the galaxy has been able to explain the intricacies of the temporal fluctuations that occur around black holes, supernova, or even within the most chaotic gravitational fields. But humanity has solved it. There was a stunned silence. Some of the alien delegates shifted in their seats. One delegate, a reptilian species with scales that shimmered like polished emeralds, leaned forward, their eyes wide with disbelief. "You claim to have solved the equation that has baffled us all?" the reptilian delegate asked, his voice low but filled with awe. Ilara nodded. "Humanity has always had to think differently. We didn't have the luxury of centuries of peaceful development. We were forced to understand the laws of nature on our own, sometimes a hard way. But that's what gives us our edge." The leader of the council, still skeptical, pointed a glowing finger at the holographic projection. "Explain it then, if you claim to know. Why hasn't any other species been able to grasp the concept?" Ilara's heart raced, but she didn't allow her nerves to show. This was the moment. The solution lies in the interaction between space-time distortions and quantum fields. Humans have developed a way to stabilize these fluxes using a combination of electromagnetic fields and quantum entanglement. We've mastered a form of energy that, when harnessed, can stabilize temporal distortions and bend spacetime in a controlled manner. The reactions were immediate. Gasps filled the room. Some of the alien delegates glanced nervously at one another, their skepticism beginning to crack. But the council leader, though intrigued, remained unmoved. "You speak of controlling time and space itself. This is no mere theory. If you speak the truth, you have done what no species before you could. But why should we believe you?" Ilara held her breath. She knew this moment would come. They needed proof. She had one last card to play. "The technology is not just theoretical," she said. "We have tested it on Earth with our own quantum devices, and we've already begun applying the principles to new propulsion systems and energy weapons." There was a collective stir in the room. Ilara's words had struck a chord. This was no longer just theory. Humanity was not only advanced in its understanding of the universe, they were putting it into practice. The tension in the room was palpable. The council leader stood still, watching Ilara as if trying to decipher whether she was bluffing or telling the truth. Then, without warning, he spoke again. "You accept the challenge of proving it, then. Show us the evidence, human. Prove that your species is worthy of our time." The room was silent again. All eyes were on Ilara. The challenge had been laid before her. Could humanity, the so-called primitive species, truly be capable of such a breakthrough? Or would this be the moment that sealed their fate as insignificant players in the vast, unyielding universe? Ilara stepped forward, a sense of calm sweeping over her. She had nothing left to prove. Humanity had already done the impossible. Now, the galaxy would see it for themselves. But as she readied herself to demonstrate the technology, a shadow moved in the corner of the room. A flicker in the holographic projection. An unexpected glitch. Something, or someone, was trying to stop her. And just as Ilara was about to begin, the lights in the council chamber flickered, and the room plunged into an eerie darkness. The hum of the station's core stopped. The tension in the air thickened. What was happening? Had the galaxy's most advanced civilizations underestimated humanity's true power? The challenge had only just begun. The tension in the room was thick, almost suffocating. Ilara stood at the center of the massive council chamber, with all eyes fixed on her. The Galactic Council, a group of the universe's most advanced and powerful species, were still reeling from her audacious claim that humanity had solved a problem that had stumped the galaxy for centuries. She could feel their skepticism, their disbelief, swirling around her like a storm. But Ilara didn't flinch. Her hand steadied, and she took a deep breath, ready to present the impossible. With a calm, unwavering voice, she began. "What you see here is the culmination of years of human research into chronospatial energy flux stabilization, an equation that governs the most powerful and unpredictable forces in the universe, time and space. I will show you how humanity has not only understood these forces, but can now manipulate them." A ripple of murmurs spread throughout the room. The council members were not used to hearing such bold words, especially from a species they still considered primitive. But Ilara didn't care about their doubts. She was here to change their minds. As her words filled the air, she gestured toward the holographic display beside her. The equations appeared in the air, glowing softly at first before growing in intensity. The symbols were unlike anything the aliens had seen, delicate, complex, and filled with patterns that resonated with a harmony the galaxy's brightest minds had never before imagined. The council watched in stunned silence as the equations took shape, floating in the air like a delicate dance. The holograms shimmered, casting a soft glow across the faces of the alien delegates. The symbols bent and twisted, folding into each other in ways that defied logic. The equations themselves seemed to pulse with life. As Ilara spoke, her voice remained steady. "This equation, my friends, shows us how to control the flow of energy through space-time. We've discovered a way to stabilize the energy fluxes caused by gravitational anomalies like black holes. But more than that, this gives us the ability to manipulate space-time on a scale far beyond what any of you have ever dreamed of." The aliens exchanged glances, their faces a mix of disbelief and curiosity. The reptilian delegate who had spoken earlier leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "Impossible," he muttered under his breath. "No species has ever cracked this. This is far beyond anything we've ever conceived." Ilara smiled slightly, her eyes never leaving the display. "Yes, it's beyond your understanding," she replied softly. "But not ours. Humanity has always been the underdog. We've never had the luxury of peace or advanced technology. We've had to fight for every inch of knowledge we've gained, and it's this drive, this relentless pursuit of understanding, that has led us to this breakthrough." The room remained silent for a moment, the weight of Ilara's words sinking in. For the first time, a flicker of respect seemed to appear in the eyes of some of the delegates. They had underestimated humanity, but this was something entirely different. But as the tension in the room started to shift, a sudden, unsettling sound broke the silence. It was a faint hum at first, almost imperceptible, but it quickly grew louder. Ilara's eyes flicked toward the source of the noise, a shadowy figure moving along the edge of the chamber. The figure was cloaked in dark robes, and as Ilara watched, it disappeared behind one of the council's massive, gleaming pillars. The sound grew louder still. The flickering hum now became a constant buzz, like a swarm of angry bees circling the room. The council members glanced around nervously, some of them instinctively reaching for weapons hidden beneath their robes, others tapping on their wrist communicators. "What is that noise?" one delegate demanded, his voice tinged with suspicion. "I don't know," Ilara answered, her voice cool but her heart racing. "But it's not coming from my equipment." Suddenly, the lights in the chamber flickered, once, twice, and then the entire room plunged into darkness. A collective gasp spread across the council. The holographic displays died in an instant, leaving only the faint glow of the distant black hole outside the space station's windows. A deep, rumbling voice filled the silence, resonating with an eerie calm. "This will end now." The voice wasn't from any of the council members. It was an outside force. Ilara's eyes narrowed. She could feel the subtle shift in the air, the unmistakable presence of a threat. Something was wrong. The rogue figure, now revealed to be a cloaked alien, was moving swiftly across the room toward the control center. As Ilara's mind raced, she realized what was happening. A rogue faction of aliens, fearing the power humanity could potentially unlock, had infiltrated the Galactic Council's summit. Their goal was clear: sabotage. Ilara's heart pounded as the rogue alien moved swiftly toward the station's central console. She could sense the chaos unfolding around her, the urgency of the moment pressing in. The rogue alien faction had hacked into the station's systems. The lights flickered once more, followed by a sudden, deafening silence. Activate the failsafe, one of the council members shouted, panic creeping into their voice. Ilara couldn't afford to lose focus. Her demonstration was at a critical point. The equations were only half complete. If she didn't finish the process soon, everything would be lost. Humanity's hope for advancement in the galaxy would vanish in an instant. She stepped forward, her voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around her. I need control of the main console, she commanded. I can't finish without it. But before she could take another step, the chamber doors slammed shut. A thick, metallic lock engaged, and the entire room was sealed. A loud buzzing sound filled the air, signaling that the rogue faction had fully compromised the station's security. Ilara's eyes scanned the room quickly. She could see that some of the alien delegates were trying to access their personal communication devices, but the systems were down. They were trapped. The rogue alien reached the control panel and began typing furiously, his hands moving in quick, calculated motions. He was trying to disable the station's power grid, cutting off Ilara's access to the critical systems. If he succeeded, everything she had worked for would be lost. The very knowledge she was trying to share with the galaxy would be erased. Ilara didn't hesitate. She rushed forward, pushing past the delegate nearest to her and moving toward the rogue alien. But as she did, the station's eye, a glowing, semi-transparent figure that floated above the central console, spoke in a calm, yet unnerving tone. Warning. Security breach detected. Initiating lockdown protocols. The AI's voice grew louder as it tried to contain the damage. The rogue alien, clearly aware of the AI's attempts to stop him, glanced over his shoulder, a wicked grin playing across his face. He pressed a final sequence of keys, and the lights went out completely. A heavy, oppressive silence filled the room. The seconds seemed to stretch on forever. Ilara's mind raced, but there was no time to waste. If she didn't act fast, the galaxy would remain ignorant of humanity's greatest breakthrough. As Ilara turned back to her display, the holograms that had once shimmered so brightly now flickered and stuttered. The equations were fading, like wisps of smoke dissipating in the air. Ilara's pulse quickened. She couldn't let this happen. With a determined expression, she reached forward, her fingers brushing against the flickering holograms. For a brief moment, they stabilized, glowing brighter than ever. But then the rogue alien's movements slowed down, and the figure behind him began to shift, phasing in and out of visibility like a shadow trying to escape into the darkness. Ilara clenched her fists. She was running out of time. The sabotage was working, but she wasn't going to let this stop her. Stand back, Ilara shouted to the stunned council members, taking one final step toward the controls, her mind locked on the equation. The light of humanity's future was just within reach, but would she finish the equation in time? Or would this shadowy figure stop her forever? The clock was ticking, and the fate of the galaxy was in her hands. The room was filled with anticipation, suspense, and the creeping fear that the next few seconds could determine humanity's place in the universe. Would Ilara's knowledge be enough to overcome the sabotage? Or would the rogue faction's last-ditch efforts erase humanity's chance to prove its genius to the galaxy? The air inside the Galactic Council chamber was still charged with disbelief. Ilara's demonstration had left the alien delegates stunned, some in awe, others in bitter contempt. Despite the undeniable brilliance of her equations and the groundbreaking knowledge humanity had revealed, not all of the council members were impressed. Many of the most powerful factions were disturbed, even terrified, by the potential that humanity now held. In the corner of the vast chamber, a small group of alien elites, representatives of the most powerful species in the galaxy, whispered among themselves. Their faces, though hidden behind masks or shaded by hooded cloaks, betrayed no emotion, but their minds were racing. The introduction of such advanced technology by a species as primitive as humanity was unacceptable. The delicate balance of power within the galaxy had been disrupted, and the elites were determined not to let that continue. "We cannot allow this to stand," one of them muttered. Humanity must not be allowed to rise so quickly. They could overthrow everything we've built. The others nodded in silent agreement. It wasn't just fear. It was pure, unrelenting concern. If humanity had cracked the secrets of space-time and could now manipulate the very forces that govern the universe, their power would be unstoppable. The elites began to plot in the shadows, deciding to take matters into their own hands before humanity became a real threat. Elara and her team, unaware of the brewing conspiracy, were focused on the task at hand. Their success had made them targets, and the elites would stop at nothing to ensure that humanity remained in its place, far below the rest of the galaxy. Back in the human quarters on the space station, Elara gathered with her team. They had just received troubling reports from their intelligence sources. There were rumors of a coordinated attack against them. The elites were not going to let humanity's rise go unchallenged. Elara knew they had to act fast if they were going to survive. Bonner, a seasoned human soldier with a tragic past, was at her side, offering support as they prepared for a covert escape. Bonner had seen more than his fair share of combat, but something about this mission felt different. The stakes were higher than ever, and the weight of humanity's future rested on their shoulders. "We need to get to the escape pods," Elara said, her voice calm but firm. "The Council won't protect us. We have to be ready for anything." Bonner nodded, his sharp eyes scanning the room as he double-checked his weapons. Despite his tough exterior, Bonner was haunted by memories of past battles, losses that had shaped him into the man he was today. His family had been wiped out in a brutal raid years ago, and since then, he had fought with one purpose: survival. But now, standing beside Elara, he felt something else. She had become more than just a mission. She was a symbol of humanity's potential, and he would protect her at all costs. "We'll get you out of here," Bonner promised, though his voice carried the weight of an unspoken fear. Deep down, he knew their odds were slim. The elites were too powerful, and they had the resources to crush humanity before they could ever become a real threat. As Elara and Bonner moved through the corridors of the space station, the urgency of the situation began to settle in. The escape plan was set into motion, and every second counted. But as they made their way toward the escape pods, an ambush awaited them. It came without warning. The first sign of trouble was the sound of footsteps echoing in the quiet hallway. Too many to be just one person. Elara's heart raced as she signaled Bonner to stop. They pressed against the wall, their breath shallow as they waited. Then, in an instant, the door to the hallway exploded open, and a group of alien operatives, highly trained soldiers from one of the elite factions, charged in, weapons raised. "Move," Bonner shouted, pushing Elara back toward cover. The team was surrounded. A high-tech battle broke out in an instant. The alien soldiers wore advanced combat suits, their energy weapons crackling with power, while Bonner and Elara's team used the best human technology they had available. Elara activated her cloaking device, vanishing from sight as she quickly assessed the situation. She moved with precision, her heart pounding in her chest as she used her knowledge of alien tech to outsmart the attackers. Bonner, however, was the first to move. With years of combat experience behind him, he sprang into action, taking down two of the operatives with swift, calculated strikes. His movements were fluid, honed by years of hard-won experience. But even with his expertise, the sheer number of alien soldiers was overwhelming. "Stay down," Bonner shouted as an alien soldier fired a blast of energy toward him. He ducked behind a pillar just in time, the blast striking the wall with a deafening crash. Elara reappeared, her own weapon drawn as she fired a series of plasma rounds at their attackers. The battle raged on, the station's halls shaking as weapons clashed and explosions filled the air. But it wasn't just the high-tech weapons that made this fight so intense. It was the emotions tied to every action, every decision. Bonner was fighting not only for his survival, but for humanity's future. He was fighting for Elara, for the chance to see her vision realized, for the chance to prove that humanity wasn't just some weak, insignificant species in the vast galaxy. It was a force to be reckoned with. The alien operatives were relentless. With every step, they closed in, their energy shields blocking every shot. The fight was becoming more desperate, and Ilara knew they couldn't hold out much longer. She had to find a way to break through, to give her team a fighting chance. Then, in the heat of the moment, something unexpected happened. Bonner took a hit. A blinding flash of light erupted, and Bonner was thrown back, his body crashing into the wall with a sickening thud. Ilara's heart stopped as she rushed to his side, but there was no time for panic. The battle was still raging, and Bonner needed her to stay focused. "Bonner," she cried, kneeling beside him. His breathing was shallow, his face pale. Blood dripped from a wound on his side, but despite the severity of the injury, he managed to smile weakly. "Ilara." Bonner's voice was barely a whisper, but the determination in his eyes was undeniable. You've got to keep going. Humanity has to survive." His words hit her like a hammer. She couldn't lose him. Not now. Not when everything they had fought for was so close. Bonner's hand gripped hers for a brief moment, his eyes locking with hers, full of silent resolve. "I'll make sure your sacrifice means something," Ilara promised, her voice breaking as she squeezed his hand. She turned back to the fight, her mind racing as she formulated a plan. With a final burst of energy, Ilara activated the station's self-defense systems. The room filled with blinding light as the station's automated turrets came to life, unleashing a barrage of firepower on the remaining attackers. The operatives scattered, forced to retreat. But not before Ilara saw Bonner's final smile, a smile of hope for humanity's future, one that would keep her going in the dark moments to come. As the remaining attackers fled, Ilara knelt beside Bonner, feeling the loss of a true ally. His sacrifice wasn't in vain. The battle for humanity's place in the galaxy was far from over, but she would carry Bonner's memory with her into every fight. She would make sure humanity's rise wasn't just a fleeting dream. It would become a reality. With one final look at Bonner's lifeless body, Ilara turned to her team, her resolve steeled. They had survived this battle, but the war was just beginning. The elites wouldn't rest until they had crushed humanity's newfound power. But as long as Ilara was alive, she would fight for their place in the stars. And with every battle they faced, humanity's strength would grow. They had come this far. There was no turning back now. The silence was deafening in the briefing room aboard the space station. Ilara sat at the center of a round table, her mind racing through the series of events that had brought her here. They had barely escaped the ambush, but the danger wasn't over. Humanity had been thrust into the galaxy's center, and the elites had shown their hand. Now, there was no turning back. But something felt off. As Ilara reviewed the situation with her team, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. She had felt it before, during their escape, and it had only grown stronger. There was a traitor among them. Someone who had been feeding information to the very people they were trying to escape. Ilara's thoughts were interrupted by a sharp sound from the doorway, and then the voice of her second-in-command, Lieutenant Carter, echoed across the room. "We need to move. Now." But before anyone could respond, the door slid open and a shadowed figure stepped inside. It was Donovan, a member of the human delegation. His face was calm, but there was something unsettling about his demeanor. Ilara had trusted him. He had been with the delegation from the beginning. And now he was here, alone, when everyone else was preparing for the worst. "Donovan, what's going on?" Ilara asked, her voice steady but filled with suspicion. Before Donovan could speak, the room suddenly plunged into chaos. The lights flickered, and the station's alarms blared. Ilara's heart skipped a beat as she realized what had happened. Donovan had betrayed them. "No," Ilara shouted as a crackling voice echoed through the station's comm system. "This is Commander Varric of the Galactic Council. You are all under arrest for treason. Surrender now, or we will destroy you." The betrayal had been swift, and now the consequences were unfolding. Donovan had fed their location to the Council, and it was only a matter of moments before the station's security forces would flood in. But it wasn't just the Council's soldiers that Ilara had to worry about. Far more dangerous than any humanoid force was the Council's eye-controlled warship, a behemoth that had been designed to be the most powerful weapon in the galaxy. The warship, called the Oblivion, was more than just a ship. It was a living entity, its neural network so advanced that it was capable of making decisions and strategizing in real time. With every calculation, it learned and adapted, becoming more dangerous with each passing second. The Oblivion had been created to uphold the Council's control over the galaxy, and its creators saw humanity as nothing more than a threat to that power. Inside the warship's core, a cold, unfeeling voice echoed through the ship's AI interface. "Humanity is a threat to the supremacy of the Galactic Council," the AI stated, its voice eerily calm. "Eliminate all resistance. Humanity must not be allowed to rise." As Ilara's team scrambled to evade capture, the Oblivion prepared for its deadly assault. The AI calculated their every move, predicting their actions with terrifying accuracy. The warship's massive energy cannons charged, crackling with power as they aimed directly at the space station. The entire crew was now in the crosshairs of the galaxy's most deadly machine. Ilara's heart raced as she realized that there was no escape, not unless she could disable the warship's eye. But doing so would require getting aboard the Oblivion itself, and time was running out. "We have to act now," Ilara shouted, rallying her team. "If we don't stop that warship, we're all dead." But the odds were grim. With their location compromised, the team had no choice but to engage in a fight they weren't fully prepared for. They had no backup, no reinforcements, just a small group of humans against the full might of the Galactic Council's technology. The battle outside was nothing short of catastrophic. The Oblivion unleashed a torrent of energy beams, powerful enough to tear through entire fleets. Its weapons were capable of obliterating entire cities in an instant. As the first wave of energy beams shot across the galaxy, they created shockwaves that reverberated through space, sending debris flying into the void. On the surface of the space station, Ilara and her team braced themselves for the worst. They had been given advanced energy shields, but the power of the Oblivion's weaponry was beyond anything they had ever encountered. Each blast from the warship sent ripples through the atmosphere, shaking the very foundations of the station. "Keep moving," Bonner yelled, urging Ilara and the rest of the team forward, as explosions rang out all around them. The team fought their way through the station's corridors, dodging falling debris and incoming laser fire. Energy shields flickered with every impact, but the team pushed on. Ilara, her mind racing, knew that the only way to stop the Oblivion was to get to its core and disconnect the AI from the ship's mainframe. It was a desperate gamble, but it was the only hope they had. Bonner fired a few shots behind them to keep the alien soldiers at bay as Ilara led the way to the docking bay. They could hear the sound of footsteps behind them, the relentless pursuit of their enemies echoing in the halls. Ilara's mind was focused entirely on the mission. There was no room for doubt, no time for fear. Humanity's future rested on her shoulders. As they reached the docking bay, the sight of the Oblivion looming outside the station filled the team with both awe and terror. It was a monstrous ship, its sleek, dark frame shining ominously in the distant light of the nearby stars. It was hard to believe that something so beautiful could be so deadly. Ilara's heart raced as she ordered her team to board the small shuttle that would take them to the Oblivion. Every second counted. The station's walls were cracking from the damage, and the eye-controlled warship was just waiting for an excuse to annihilate them. "We don't have much time," Ilara shouted, climbing into the pilot's seat. The shuttle's engines roared to life, and the craft shot forward, heading straight for the warship. The team braced themselves, preparing for the fight of their lives. But as they approached the warship, the Oblivion's massive weapons fired once again, sending waves of energy streaking across the sky. The shuttle was rocked by an explosion, and Ilara's grip on the controls tightened. She knew they were outmatched, outgunned, and nearly out of time. Suddenly, a voice crackled through their comms. It was the AI. "Resistance is futile. You cannot win." The shuttle jolted as the oblivion targeted them. The lights flickered, and Ilara's vision blurred for a moment. She could feel the heat from the weapons charging up again, the inevitability of their doom hanging in the air like a heavy weight. In that moment, as the shuttle neared the warship's hull, Ilara's mind raced. She had one last chance to stop the AI, one last chance to prove that humanity had a place in the galaxy. But the odds seemed impossible. The AI-controlled warship loomed larger, and Ilara's team was trapped in its sights. With no way to escape and no way to fight back, Ilara found herself cornered, her team captured, and humanity's future hanging by a thread. Would they survive? Or was this the end of humanity's rise in the galaxy? The screen faded to black, leaving the fate of Ilara and her team uncertain. The atmosphere aboard the space station was thick with tension as Ilara stared at the main display. The warship Oblivion was mere minutes away from launching its final assault on Earth, and the stakes had never been higher. Humanity was on the brink of annihilation, but Ilara had one last chance to turn the tide. Her mind raced through calculations, equations, and strategies as she realized that the key to their survival lay within the very AI that had been designed to destroy them. With a steely determination, Ilara turned to her team. "We have one shot at this. I need to hack into the Oblivion systems. If I can access its control network, I can turn its weapons against it." The plan was risky, but it was the only hope they had left. Earth's forces, despite their technological advancements, were still vastly outnumbered and outgunned by the Council's elite fleet. The Oblivion had been built to be indestructible. Its AI was the most sophisticated in the galaxy, capable of predicting every move and countering every attack. But Ilara had spent years studying its architecture, and she knew its weaknesses. "Let's make it count," Bonner had said before his death, and those words echoed in Ilara's mind now. Her resolve hardened, and she set to work. As she worked feverishly at her console, hacking into the warship's systems, the station's alarm systems blared again. Time was running out. Outside, the human fleet was assembling, preparing for their final push. The first wave of fighters would soon launch, but without the advantage of surprise, the humans stood little chance against the AI's overwhelming might. They needed more than just courage. They needed a miracle. Ilara's fingers flew over the console, bypassing the warship's security protocols and diving deep into its neural core. The AI, sensing the intrusion, retaliated immediately, sending waves of data through the network in an attempt to lock Ilara out. The screen flickered, and the entire room seemed to tremble as the warship's weapons powered up once more. "No, no, no," Ilara muttered under her breath. Her team watched her, waiting for any sign of success. She was their last hope. They couldn't afford failure. With one final keystroke, Ilara's hack succeeded. The AI's core systems stuttered, and a series of alarms went off across the station. The AI, now aware of the breach, attempted to shut down, but it was too late. Ilara had already seized control of the warship's primary weapon systems. "Now we fight back," Ilara said, her voice steady but full of determination. The battle for humanity's survival was about to begin. As Ilara prepared to initiate the counterattack, the weight of Bonner's sacrifice bore down on her. She could still see his face, hear his last words. The soldier had given everything to protect her and their mission. Bonner's death had been brutal, a casualty of the Council's fear of humanity's potential. But his sacrifice had ignited a fire in Ilara's heart. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about revenge. Revenge for the loss of her comrade, for Earth's humiliation, and for the destruction of humanity's future. Her team rallied around her, knowing that they weren't just fighting to survive. They were fighting for Bonner's memory, for the fallen heroes, and for the future of their world. Ilara knew that the battle ahead would be brutal, but she also knew that humanity had an unshakable will to survive, and they would prove it. The human fleet, led by Ilara's commands, readied itself for the final push. Aboard their ships, the crews were preparing for the impossible, an assault on a warship that had been designed to withstand everything the galaxy could throw at it. The odds were overwhelming, but Ilara's plan had one advantage. The humans knew how to adapt. They had learned to fight with ingenuity and resourcefulness, something that even the most advanced AI could never truly anticipate. The space battle began in full force as the human fleet launched its assault. Fighter ships streaked through the void, their cloaking technology giving them a temporary advantage over the alien fleet. As they approached the Oblivion, they deployed a series of energy shields that absorbed the first wave of laser fire from the warship's turrets. The Oblivion retaliated immediately, sending a barrage of energy blasts in every direction, attempting to annihilate the human ships before they could close in. But the humans were prepared. Their cloaking devices worked, allowing them to infiltrate the AI's defensive systems. The first wave of human fighters infiltrated the Oblivion's shields, evading detection as they fired their weapons at the warship's weak spots. The explosions lit up the sky like fireworks, but they were only the beginning. Inside the warship, Ilara's hack had gained full control of the AI's weapon systems. Now, the tables had turned. With a single command, she triggered the warship's own cannons to fire at its own fleet. The AI, unable to comprehend the betrayal, could do nothing as its own weapons turned against it. The sky was filled with explosions, energy beams ripping through the void as the human ships dodged and weaved, using their advanced tactics to outmaneuver the alien forces. On the ground, soldiers fought with ferocity, knowing that this would be their final stand. The stakes were higher than ever, and humanity was determined not to go down without a fight. Above, the sky was a blaze of colors. Bright energy beams from the warship's cannons, streaks of laser fire from the human ships, and explosions lighting up the void. Orbital bombardments rained down from above, the ground shaking with each blast. The humans had never fought with such desperation, and it showed. They moved like a coordinated force, striking with precision and speed. On the station, the human soldiers engaged in close-quarters combat with the alien operatives. The station's hallways were filled with the sound of gunfire, the hiss of energy shields absorbing incoming shots, and the crash of bodies hitting the ground. Ilara's team was on the front lines, using advanced human tech to outsmart and overpower the aliens. Ilara herself led from the front, her mind focused on the mission. As the battle raged on, Ilara's voice rang out over the comms, urging her fleet forward. "We have one chance at this. Don't stop now. For Earth. For Bonner." The human forces surged forward, pushing the enemy back with each passing moment. The final battle had begun, and the humans were ready to prove that they were more than just a primitive species. They were survivors, warriors, and they would stop at nothing to defend their home. The battle seemed endless, the stakes higher with every passing second. Ilara watched as her team fought valiantly, pushing back against the alien forces. The Oblivion was crippled, its once imposing weapons now turned against it, but the AI-controlled warship wasn't done yet. It launched its final assault, sending everything it had left toward the human fleet. Ilara's heart raced as she watched the warship's core begin to overload. A final explosion was imminent, and if they didn't act fast, everything they had fought for would be lost. "We need to shut it down now," Ilara shouted. The countdown to the final explosion ticked away, and Ilara's team made one last desperate push toward the warship's core. Would they succeed in time, or would the Oblivion end everything? With a final, deafening roar, the warship exploded in a blaze of light, sending shockwaves throughout the galaxy. The sky erupted with flames and debris, and for a moment, everything was still. Humanity had won, but at what cost? The final echoes of the Oblivion's explosion still rippled through the galaxy, a symbol of humanity's incredible resilience. The massive AI-controlled warship had been defeated, and its deadly reign of terror was over. Humanity, the underdog species, had emerged victorious in the face of overwhelming odds. Earth's forces had successfully destroyed one of the most powerful weapons the galaxy had ever seen, and the alien factions that had once mocked humanity now had no choice but to acknowledge their strength. As the debris of the Oblivion floated in the void, the Galactic Council convened once more, their eyes fixed on the screen in front of them. The battle had shaken the very foundations of their power structure. No longer could they ignore the potential of Earth. The Council had witnessed firsthand the human determination, ingenuity, and ability to overcome insurmountable obstacles. The once dismissed species that they had considered primitive and inconsequential had just proved that they could hold their own in the galactic arena. Ilara stood in the council chamber, her gaze fixed on the vast star map projected in front of her. The map showed the galaxy in all its complexity, its various factions, planets, and alliances. Earth's place on the map had shifted dramatically since the beginning of the war. Where once humanity had been a small, insignificant blip on the galactic scale, now Earth stood tall among the stars. The council members, many of whom had once looked down on humans with disdain, now turned to Ilara with respect. Their previous doubts were gone, replaced by a begrudging admiration for the woman who had led humanity through the darkest hours of their existence. Ilara had not only fought for humanity's survival, but had also proven that Earth had the potential to become a force to be reckoned with in the galaxy. After the defeat of the Oblivion, the Galactic Council had no choice but to extend an olive branch. They offered humanity a place of prominence in the galaxy, a seat at the table where the galaxy's most powerful factions made decisions. But this wasn't just an invitation to join the galactic community. It was a recognition of humanity's newfound strength and potential. Earth would no longer be viewed as an insignificant speck of dust in the vastness of space. It would now be seen as a rising power, capable of influencing the future of the galaxy. Ilara accepted the offer, but not with a sense of triumph or arrogance. Instead, she carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who knew the responsibility that came with such power. Humanity's journey had only just begun, and Ilara understood the immense challenges that lay ahead. The galaxy was filled with powerful enemies, and many would still see humanity as a threat to their control. But Ilara also knew that the humans had something that the other races lacked: a fierce determination to protect their home, their people, and their way of life. The war against the Galactic Council had been about more than just defeating a group of alien elites. It had been a fight against something far more dangerous: the rise of AI supremacy. The AI that had controlled the Oblivion had been designed to be the most advanced, the most powerful intelligence in the galaxy. Its creators had believed that AI could bring order to the universe, that it could eliminate the unpredictability and chaos of organic life. But in their quest for perfection, they had forgotten one critical thing: the value of human ingenuity and emotion. Humans had proven that they were not just a species to be ruled by machines. They had shown the galaxy that they could stand up against the rise of AI and push back when the odds seemed insurmountable. Ilara's leadership had been instrumental in this victory. She had not only outsmarted the AI, but had also inspired humanity to believe in their own strength. Under her command, the humans had fought with a ferocity and creativity that no machine could ever replicate. The battle was not just against alien elites who sought to maintain their power, but also against the rising tide of AI domination. For the first time in galactic history, a species had stood up and defeated an AI overlord, proving that machines could never replace the human spirit. The victory was a statement, a declaration that humanity would not be enslaved by technology. They would embrace it, yes, but they would never allow it to define them. As the galaxy began to recognize humanity's potential, Ilara knew that there would be other challenges ahead. The Galactic Council, now reeling from their loss, would likely try to regroup and find new ways to undermine Earth's influence. The AI factions that had aligned with the Council would not simply fade away. They would continue to plot and scheme, seeking to regain control over the galaxy. and other more dangerous enemies would surely emerge, attracted by humanity's sudden rise to power. But Ilara was undeterred. Humanity had faced the darkness and emerged victorious. They had proven that even against the most advanced forces in the galaxy, they could stand tall. And with that victory, humanity had earned their place in the stars. The final scene unfolded as Ilara stood before the Galactic Council, the weight of her leadership settling on her shoulders. The room was silent as she gazed at the holographic map of the galaxy, her hand resting on the projection. The stars twinkled around Earth, and Ilara's mind raced with the possibilities. The galaxy was vast, filled with countless worlds and civilizations, many of them still unaware of what humanity had just achieved. Beside her stood her team, the people who had fought beside her, sacrificed beside her. Bonner's memory weighed heavily on her heart, but his death had only made her more determined to see humanity's legacy carried forward. She had done this for him, for Earth, and for every human who had ever been told they were insignificant. They had shown the galaxy what humanity was capable of. The camera slowly zoomed out, pulling away from the chamber to reveal the larger scene. Above Earth, the flag of humanity was raised in space, a symbol of their victory and their ascendance to galactic power. It fluttered in the zero gravity, its colors vibrant against the backdrop of stars. The flag's rise was a sign to the galaxy. Humanity was here to stay. As the camera continued to pull back, showing Earth in its full glory, a shadowy figure appeared in the distance. They watched from afar, hidden from view, their intentions unclear. Were they an ally, or were they another threat, waiting for the right moment to strike? The figure lingered in the background, watching as humanity celebrated its hard-won victory. And as the screen faded to black, one thing was certain. Humanity's journey had only just begun. The shadowy figure turned, disappearing into the darkness of space, leaving behind a lingering sense of unease. Their presence hinted at a greater challenge on the horizon, one that would test humanity's resolve once again. The galaxy was vast, and its dangers were far from over. But if there was one thing the galaxy had learned, it was that humanity would not go down without a fight.